What if you could go back in time and you knew more before you made those big decisions in life? What would you do differently? What advice would have helped you then and now? Welcome to Know Before You Owe podcast. I am Jim Black, and I've been lucky to have gone from being a market maker on Wall Street, helping big decisions be made with key executives at companies, to now being a trusted advisor for large financial real estate transactions for families. In my career, I've met some of the most incredible people along the way, and we're lucky to have them share their experiences with us on this podcast. These are top experts in their fields, great leaders in work and in life. Yes, will share their life experiences, wisdom, and insights that you can leverage in your own decision of life. Thank you, and please stay tuned for our upcoming episodes, and I'm excited to help you know more before you owe. Please subscribe to learn more, and we look forward to seeing you on our next podcast.
Hi, it's Jim Black, and welcome to another podcast edition of Know Before You Owe. I'm excited today to bring you a very special guest, Ace Woods, who is a fantastic real estate professional, and she owns Dreamcatch Properties, the founder of that company, along with co-owning Revest Homes here on the West Coast with national connections for both real estate and lending. So welcome to our podcast, Ace. Great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Jim. I'm excited to chat today.
Awesome. Well, real estate is a very interesting industry to be in. It's not like you go to school to learn real estate, right? You don't go study math in 10th grade to go learn how to write a contract or talk about payments. You probably don't study the art of staging a property in economics or in history class in high school, for example. Can you share your story on how you got into real estate?
That's such a funny point. We always joke like real estate is, you're a therapist, you're an interior designer, you're a negotiator, you're doing law with the contracts, you're doing finance. I mean, it's everything, right? So you can't really learn it in one place. And a lot of times it's learn as you go. My background is, I went to UC Davis for business, and I worked in healthcare financial consulting before my real estate career. And so my background is really both on the financial side and financial analysis, and then also on contract analysis and negotiations as well. So totally different industry, healthcare, but luckily some tools that have carried over very well.
So let's talk about that. So if I recall correctly from learning your bio, you are kind of like Doogie Howser, MD. You graduated high school before you were able to drive, right?
Yes, I graduated high school when I was 15, and I graduated college before I was able to drink when I was 20. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's amazing. So you must be high in the IQ level, which is fantastic. Tell us more about that contract element of healthcare. You talk about that being one of your first jobs. What did that teach you about your progression into real estate and being a master negotiator with the largest financial decision in people's lives?
Yeah. So in that position, I worked under Stanford negotiations law professor. So I definitely learned some great negotiation techniques there. That's huge in real estate. Aside from that, I think the biggest thing I learned was how to read a contract and even how to write a contract. Because as a consulting firm, we would give suggestions on how to improve contracts. And I worked on the legal team there, ghostwriting demand letters for contract performance. So in being able to read legalese, and we have in California, we have a 16-page purchase agreement. So that's a long contract. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't read them, don't know how to read them. And so that was definitely something that I learned in that role that's come in handy. And there's so many nuances. Every single real estate transaction and deal is different. Every house is different. Every family is different. Every financial situation is different. And just the multitude of scenarios that come up, it's important to truly know what's in the contract, to know what obligations are, ways to get out of the contract, or ways to encourage people like, hey, you need to perform here.
That's awesome. So again, people may not think 3 steps ahead or see the best way of approaching a scenario where you could have risk or exposure or have an advantage for your client, right? Maybe they don't know that you've set this up to be able to be an advantage for them, for their best interest, because that's what we do, right? I'm in real estate and lending also, and that's the most important thing we do. Is we're the fiduciary responsibility to make sure that our clients get the best level of service, the best advice, and a custom approach to helping them, right? I mean, people, like you mentioned earlier, people are emotional. It's a psychology element to it all. It's numbers, it's dollars and cents, it's payment, it's unknowns.
But people think it's price, and it's so much more than price. So much more goes into a contract negotiation. I can't tell you how many times, including a closing I had last week, where we won not because we had the highest price, but because we had the best terms. There's so many other elements that go into writing a good contract for a multi-million-dollar piece of property.
So let's talk about a little bit more for our audience who's not familiar with that. Maybe they haven't bought a house yet, or maybe they haven't done it for a while. When you talk about best terms, you mentioned again that it's not about the highest dollar amount or the highest proceed gain for the seller. It could mean other things. So can you share in your example of how in your last transaction you were the accepted offer relative to other offers that may have been higher?
Yeah, I'll give an example and then a few other examples of other scenarios, things to take into account. So in the one we just closed, the property was listed for 1.8 million. It was a multiple offer situation. We did go over. We bought it. My clients bought it for 1.282 million, but there was higher offers. And the reason that my clients were able to win that offer was because they were able to come in cash. So they did not have contingencies. Contingencies are reasons or ways to back out of a contract. So the seller knew that when my clients got into contract, they were not going to back out unless, they wanted to forfeit their earnest money deposit, which would be 3% of 1.8 million. So a large amount of money on the table if they backed out.
They've been risking $54,000.
Yes.
If they didn't perform. So you have a tough job there too, to make sure that your client understands there's risk of them if they don't perform.
Absolutely. And so we had to do a lot of due diligence on the front end and talk, we go down to the county, we talked to contractors, we came in the rain, we did everything to make sure they knew as much about that property as possible so that they didn't, decide to change their mind and potentially forfeit the $54,000 deposit. So not only did we have really strong terms where they knew we weren't going to back out, that the sellers were actually in contract to buy another property. So it was very important to them that their buyers did not back out. Otherwise, they would not be able to perform and they could lose their deposit. So that was two things. The next thing is that the property they were buying was a fixer. So my clients were able to give them a 90-day free rent back so that they could fix up the new house before moving in. So
domino effect of life events for people, and you understood what those life events were, and you're able to customize a negotiated contract to really hit the points that were important for the seller. And maybe it wasn't the highest offer where they may have got more money, but it gave them other things that are things that people sometimes forget about. People have different preferences on things of what's important to them, right? Like even when you look to buy a house, I'd imagine a view versus a big house, or a big backyard versus a turnkey property. That everyone has different preferences, and that's what is exciting about real estate, right? So
it's true. And this was like such a unique situation where we were able to give them truly what the best offer was for them. The peace of mind for them to know that they were definitely going to be able to perform on their other house, that they were definitely going to have time to fix it up before they had to move in there. Those are kind of priceless to them, or at least the value is there. We're like, hey, maybe they're not going to take $50,000 or $100,000 more. They're like, we want to know we're going to get this house. We want to know we're going to be able to move in there. So that's where you have to be creative in your negotiations. And it's really not just all about price.
Absolutely. And I'd imagine too, it's right now we're in the first quarter of 2023. Inventory is still pretty light. So we know that it's probably difficult also. If you aren't able to find opportunities for clients, you have that challenge too, that you may have to work even harder right now. So I commend you and your team for being able to pull that off when there's a very limited inventory. What type of inventory are we seeing right now here in the West Coast, and specifically like California? What are you finding out there for what's happening?
Yeah, so just real quick on that one, they were on a super short timeline because they needed to keep their Prop 19 tax basis. In California, you can keep your property tax basis if you're over 55, I think up to 3 times. So, but you have to do it within 2 years of when you sold. And so the clock was actually ticking for them. They had to buy it. And it was very stressful because, as you said, there's really low inventory. And so typically there is a seasonality to real estate. Inventory is pretty low. January, February, they're the slowest months, which can be a good time to list your home because, hey, there's not a lot of competition of other homes, but all the demand is still there. Regardless, now that we're getting into March, we're starting to see the inventory pick up a little bit. The problem is that it's still constrained and it will remain constrained because unlike in 2008 where we were having a ton of building going on, our builders just have not really ever picked back up to the way they were. We have a lot of red tape at the local level in my county here in Santa Cruz in the Bay Area, but also statewide. There have been some changes with ADU laws and other things to try to encourage development, but it really has been stifled, I would say, since 2008. A lot of the developers kind of like got their hand burned. A lot of people lost their business at that point in time, and building has not kept up with population growth. So we are
People like supply and demand of inventory. Like we have
yes,
more, we have more demand for houses as there's more millennials with jobs leaving college, and the inventory has not been able to keep up with that. Is that what I'm hearing?
it hasn't, and it's going to continue to stay that way for a while. I mean, building a property can take just one home can take a couple years. Uh, yeah.
But that's a um, a risk or a threat to the business of being a real estate professional. Let's turn that around and talk about opportunities that you're excited about. What even in a tight market, what do you do that's different than most real estate professionals or companies out there? Did you have a good perspective of why not work at a big company versus your own company like you do? Can you share some of those ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I started my career at a big company. I started at, one of the top nationwide firms, and I think I did one deal there before I left to go on my own because kind of like we talked about earlier with my education, I kind of follow my own path, and that's always been really successful for me. So being at a big box brokerage was not going to work for me. I kind of beat to my own drum, and so there's a lot of things that we do differently, both at Dreamcatch Properties, at Revest Homes, at companies that I've created. That's the whole thing, is thinking outside of the box, creating opportunities where people may feel stuck, coming up with custom solutions. So there's a lot of unique services that we provide. We help people renovate before they sell. We can help people buy before they sell. We can do a lot of unique things. And it's taken a long time to put all of this together. It's taken me about 5+ years to be able to get all the pieces together. Because like I said, I run into every nuanced situation possible. I've dealt with hoarders. I've dealt with people getting condemned. I've dealt with people who find their dream house, but they need to sell another house first and they're moving from a different area. Like there's so many different scenarios across the board. And it's taken a long time to put the pieces together to really have the whole pie, so that no matter what client you meet, you can help. Because I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with that they've spoken with other realtors that couldn't help them. And that's a really great feeling to feel like, hey, I can actually help someone with their problem at a higher level than I could have in the past, or the higher level than my peers can. That's great.
And so you're there for important decisions, and it might not mean you get something right today, but it might mean that you're building rapport or that relationship as a consultative person to be able to add value and know that you are their go-to resource for real estate, right?
It's a long-term relationship in real estate. So yeah, of course, there's going to be times where, no, I don't think you should sell your house right now. Or no, I don't think you should buy right now. If the right thing comes along, and we can definitely try to put it together. But this is about long-term relationships with families. And so it's helping them with where they're at. And of course, if we can find a creative solution to get them to where they want to go, sometimes we can do it quickly and sometimes it takes time.
And I imagine too that you have generational wealth that also might play in a role. Like maybe there's a state activity where someone's out of the area trying to figure out what to do with mom or grandma's house. Or maybe that families want to leave a legacy behind where they can help their grandkids buy property or put a down payment on a property. I'd imagine
There's
that
a
you have
lot
a
of
lot of dynamics that you have.
there's a lot of education that occurs at every level. So, I was meeting with a client last week. It's the opposite. No one in her family has ever owned a house. And she was really intimidated to even pick up the phone to have that first phone call. She was a family friend. So she's like, I called you because I felt comfortable. I'm like, well, I want everyone to feel comfortable, because even people who own 10 homes, maybe people who have portfolios of tens of millions of dollars, they may still not even know about estate planning or even strong investment strategies. Are you building wealth? Are you building cash flow? Like, education is a really big piece of what we do, and it's at all levels.
That's cool. And it's so important because it's the whole know before you owe mindset, right? It's the same idea, right? Make good decisions and be prepared for those decisions before they happen, because things happen, right? Like I'm unfortunately going to 2 funerals this weekend for dear friends, parents of mine, and they weren't, you want to think that you're as planned as you can be for those events. And unfortunately life happens and things can surprise you. So knowing before you owe and things you can control is kind of to me, it's a makes sense thing, right? If we can help educate people and empower them to have the tools to make great decisions, then they'll be prepared for whatever may come, good or bad.
Yeah, I mean, none of us are infallible. We are all going to die at some point, and making sure that we set our families up for success afterwards is super important. It's a conversation I have with all of my clients. I work with a lot of great estate planning attorneys that know way more about it than I do. But of course, it is a conversation that we have to have, because crazy things happen every day. And so being able to prepare your family in the short and the long term for success is super important. And one of those things is putting your property in a trust.
Cool. And again, it sounds like you have a whole tool belt of resources that someone can come to you about with anything related to real estate or lending. If something came up that was a situation, you could guide them in the right direction and get them to the expert that they needed to talk.
I probably get 20 plus requests a week for some sort of referral, whether it's a painter, an estate planning attorney, a 1031 exchange person, a lender, whatever it is. I'm sort of like a call center or something, sending out referrals. But again, like, all of these pieces fit together. Your home is your biggest purchase typically.
Yeah, and I love it because if they're coming to you for referrals or people that you can connect them with, it means that they ultimately trust you the most, which is an honor, right? That's a pretty cool thing to have that perspective. Even if it doesn't benefit you directly, it still benefits you with your relationship with them and the opportunity to help more people down the road with people that they may know, right? So it's a relationship business. I know that we sometimes in real estate get stuck in the transaction, right? People get in the heat of the battle. It can be stressful. There can be surprises that come up. There can be shifts that need to be made and pivots that need to happen. But at the end of the day, you're hopeful that you've made an impact on a family's life to be able to be there for the long run, because we hope that it's relationship driven, not transaction related. And a lot of realtors, I don't think, understand that, right? People that are looking for their next transaction, they're not thinking about it correctly. They should be looking at their next relationship that they're building. And that changes the mindset for a lot of people. You don't get in the concern of making a sale. You focus on the long-term relationship side. So any little win, if it's referring them to a painter or getting a thank you card for helping someone 5 years ago, that's kind of more about what it's about, at least from my perspective of the real estate environment and finance environment. So the theme of this show is obviously know before you owe, and we take top successful people like yourself, leaders in their industry. I was reading your bio also. You have recently won a few awards in your local community, and you were the president of a really cool association, and that's a national association. Can you share what what your president role was and what that taught you. And it's, I think, a really cool thing because I don't think many people outside the industry know about this association. I think it's really important, especially with female leaders like yourself. So can you share?
Yeah, so I was the president of our local chapter of the Women's Council of Realtors. And that is similar to the Association of Realtors. There's local, state, and national levels. And as a president of our network, I was able to go to national events with realtors from across the country. And it really expanded my mind towards kind of this like global, or at least now nationwide network, and the relationships that have come from that, the business that has come from that has been super exciting. And it's something that I've worked and I'm working to bring into our business lines. We're working on the lending and the real estate side to grow those national relationships. And that was kind of the idea behind Revest when we started Revest, is to have it something that could go that big. And we're creating a lot of those relationships. And I think a lot of agents get stuck, and it's important to be niche-y, you get in your niche, but to be able to have those statewide, those national relationships just like totally changes your business, really.
That's huge. So you're able to superpower your ability and your resources. And also I'm sure you get like forward insight to where things are moving to, so you can maybe shift your business or your tools to make sure that you adapt to that and stay in front of that.
Well, absolutely, because a realtor in Chicago or in Florida, they're not a direct competitor to me. So if I can connect with a top agent in another area, they can give me their secrets. We can share what works. And I've done that. I've been doing that with realtors across the country, where we're sharing what is working for us in our area that has propelled our business, and we're able to create relationships and start doing business together too, which is really great.
That's cool, because having perspective of ideas that maybe not the same routines that people are used to can help give them an edge in their marketplace, right? So maybe finding a new way to market on a gift campaign or a event campaign or some type of new product or tool.
Even more than that, think about, companies like Zillow that are doing iBuying. They weren't doing iBuying here in the central coast of California. It's too expensive. But in other jurisdictions where they're doing that, it's really important to know what's going on, because those things will move here. So to know what's going on, even with the big tech companies or the big real estate firms, what they're doing in different jurisdictions, because they always test it in a pilot area. It's really important to see what's going on, because these things do reverberate on the national level and they do move into our markets. And so you want to be on the cutting edge of what's going to happen in your market before it does, really, or right at the beginning, if it's the right thing to get into.
So being a student of your industry, right? Like the people I'd imagine that think they know all the answers or think they have all the answers probably aren't performing at their highest level, and they probably will be passed up by people and teams like yourself that have the drive and motivation and intrigue to keep learning and growing, right?
Yeah, you have to do those masterminds at the larger level. It's really important to get involved in those types of groups. The Women's Council of Realtors has been a really great resource, but there are others as well out there. And of course, you don't have to be a woman to be a part of the Women's Council of Realtors, which is kind of another cool, interesting thing we can talk about another time. But the real estate, my industry is constantly changing, where there's always been a lot of fear of if our jobs are even going to go away. Are we going to be needed? I truly feel that we will be needed no matter what. There's just too much that goes into each property and each situation to be able to automate it. But to be able to stay on the forefront of the technology, because there's a ton of money in real estate, obviously, it's one of the biggest sectors. So there's always going to be new technology. There's always going to be new competition. To know what's going on out there, what's working, what worked last year doesn't work this year. So you need to stay on top of it, and you need to see what's out there, because that's the way for you to also provide the best resources to your clients. There's some cool new technology that we're implementing right now. We're doing home ownership hubs. So we're giving clients a way to
maintain all of their documents for their home over the long term, to be able to track their equity, to be able to even call service providers directly from a list of vendors that we recommend to them. And then it also keeps us in front of them if they ever need anything when it comes time for taxes, if they want to refi, whatever it is. So like these types of tools can be really great in helping us offer more to our clients.
That's cool. So staying ahead of the competition, trying to add more value, and to circle back to kind of the perspective of if you knew something different a while ago when you were like, let's see, if you were 18 or 19 when you graduate college, let's see, you're going to be retired by the age of 40. And so let's go back in time. And what would you have talked to a younger version of yourself about to give yourself perspective of something that would stand out, or a few things for that matter?
So I actually got the best advice when I was 18. I just didn't take it. It was in my business law class, and my professor said, the best thing you can do for yourself is be your own boss and start your own company. The sky is the limit, is what he said. And it stuck with me, but it intimidated me, and I didn't really know how to use that piece of information. And I started out my career doing what I thought I was supposed to do. So I went and I got the corporate job straight out of college, and I got the salary and the benefits, and it was really fun for a couple of years. And then, I went through some changes. I hadn't, started my family. I moved back home to my hometown and did a career shift and kind of fell into real estate. Honestly, my dad was a realtor and I swore I would never do it. Who wants a commission-based job? That is so stressful. But I kind of had this opportunity to get into it when I was basically stay-at-home mom for a little bit with my son when he was, an infant. And it just took off. And I guess I wish I had realized the value of being an entrepreneur, of starting your own business. Because I was winning awards at the consulting firm. But that's all I had was an award for all my hard work that sat on my desk and some recognition. But now my hard work means I make more money, means I bring more value to my clients, means my team is able to do more. And so I wish I had truly understood what he meant when he said, be your own boss, start your own company. It took me another 8 years, I think, till I finally did that. But it's been really worth it. So I guess that's my advice to people. If you really, really want to break out of the mold, if you really want to be your highest self, you should really consider what your passion is and trying to find a way to be your own boss with that. Because otherwise, you're stuck in the rat race, honestly. That's
cool. So again, follow your passion, find something that complements the skill set you have that you love to do, right? If you love helping people, find something that can reward those people and you also. And that's exciting. That's really,
it can be anything. It can truly be anything. Even if it's, a trade, start your own company in that trade. Don't go work for someone else. And it's not for everyone, but for me, that was the biggest thing that changed my life, was going to actually start my own company.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you being on, and our history, how I got to meet you, was actually pretty much through one of those networking groups, right? Like, it was one of those things that we didn't know each other very much before. We were able to collaborate and talk and share ideas and share a lot of the same perspective and vision on things and the future of our industries. And it's exciting to see how a common interest has developed into way bigger than that, which is really awesome. And I love working with you and your team, and it's exciting to see the future of what you can do. And we also, I believe, share the same birthday, right?
I was going to say, can you share a fun fact?
Yeah, we have the same birthday. So January 18th is our birthday, which is exciting. I think we're both pretty strong Capricorns, which is a little A-type personality, kind of like to lead the way. So that's always fun when you meet someone that's like you, because you're like, whoa, like, I guess that's how I come off. That's cool. Or, hey, I can learn from that and adjust myself a little bit. So, and it's really it's really been an honor to see you kind of grow into your own new space and your own world. And can you help people across the country? If someone reached out to you and said, "Hey, Ace, I want to move to Nashville, Tennessee," do you have that capability to do that? Can you help people?
Yeah, we do. So not only am I always happy to consult someone anywhere on their situation, I have a great network of individuals that are throughout the country that can help you wherever you are. And then on the lending side, we're also gearing up to be able to do loans in most of the states as well. So both on a real estate and financial perspective, we have a ton of resources that can work nationwide. And like I said, I'm always happy to chat through scenarios no matter where you are.
Awesome. Well, I'm grateful for your time today. This has been a great 30 minutes of our podcast. Want to thank you for being on our podcast. And that wraps up another edition of Know Before You Owe. Thank you for your time. Thank you to the audience for listening to our podcast. So excited that we had Ace Woods on from Dreamcatch Properties and Revest Homes. And if you need anything help-wise, Ace is a great resource, and Ace is the place, I guess, is one of those things that comes up to mind when I think of that. But you've done a great job, Ace. Thank you for being on our show, and I look forward to seeing you soon, and keep up the great work.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.